Howdy, folks. I'm Jeff Gonzalez, former Navy SEAL, president of Trident Concepts, and host of the Bulletproof Workshop, powered by AR15.com. We are here to explore the knowledge, skills, and ability to help bulletproof your everyday performance in whatever your field. This is podcast 007. Whether you need a caffeine kick or just simply enjoy the aroma, coffee brings a smile to millions of faces every day. I count myself lucky. I've traveled the world. No matter where I went, one constant was coffee. It was an easy way to start a conversation, make friends, or in some cases, build a business. My guest is a U.S. Navy veteran, entrepreneur, head honcho at Cuvee Coffee. Please welcome to the show, Mike McKim. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I've been waiting to have you on the show because we were hoping that we were going to bring some product that we can actually have out, some product placement, and you didn't bring any.
It got snagged on the way in the door.
Oh,
yeah.
it did? Uh-huh. That motherfucker. I know who snagged it.
You know who took it. Yeah.
I know who took that motherfucker. All right. It's on. Well, Mike, again, thank you for coming on. We were hoping to plug your product. We'll do it in the show notes and stuff like that. How have things been going, man?
It's good, no complaints, obviously.
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to the complaints. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. And speaking of that, let's take a quick moment to thank our sponsors here. Daniel Defense advocates for individuals' rights to bear arms, which is why they manufacture 100% American-made high-quality firearms backed with a lifetime warranty. To learn more, visit DanielDefense.com. What kind of started you on the path that you are on right now?
The windy path.
Yes.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Philly.
Nice.
Yep. Grew up there, and then, just average, middle-income family type of thing. Dad was a corporate pilot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we moved halfway through you know what? Let me back up.
Mm-hmm.
So as I got into, close to the high school age, it was always good, straight A student. I was one of those kids who I didn't really have to study, right?
Nice.
School was easy. Yeah.
Bastard.
Yeah. Problem was I never developed any study habits. So then when I got to the point where I did have to study, that's when I started struggling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I got kind of high school age, and, in 8th grade, I got my first F, where I had to go to summer school to pass the class. And so my parents, being, the loving, caring parents that they are, they said, we're going to give you all the opportunities we can for you to succeed. So they put me in one of the most elite private boys' schools.
No kidding.
In Pennsylvania. Yep. Called the Haverford School for Boys. So I was there my freshman year, and I, how would I say this? I didn't really fit in as well as I think they had hoped I would. Being an elite school was a lot of very wealthy kids.
Sure.
And, we weren't poor by any stretch, but we definitely weren't wealthy either.
Yeah.
So I had some problems. A few altercations that happened. I was asked to leave the school.
Okay.
So I left the school, and I went to a Catholic school after that, Cardinal O'Hara. Yep.
Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Into the fire, yes. And then halfway, that was my sophomore year, and then halfway through my junior year, my dad got offered a job in Dallas, Texas. Ooh. And so we moved to Dallas, which I thought was the absolute end of my life.
Really?
Yeah, it was very, I had that vision of Texas. That's your stereotypical vision if you grow up in the Northeast, that everybody, drives Cadillacs with cow horns on them and wears cowboy hats and tumbleweeds. And
yeah, we do that on purpose.
Yes. So got to Dallas, and just to show my parents how much I resented them uprooting me, a second week I was there, I went and got a tattoo.
Ooh.
Yep. Showed them.
That
real
showed
good.
them.
That's how smart I was, Jeff. Yeah. Of course, we've known each other a while, so I think you know this.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then, I went to 4 high schools in 4 years. Yeah.
Damn.
So,
That's rough.
I failed my senior year of high school in Dallas and had to go to summer school in order to graduate. So I actually never participated in a graduation or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
Boo-hoo. Yeah, exactly. One of the things that my parents did, though, that was actually super insightful is they kind of saw the destructive path that I was on. Maybe recognized college may or may not be the best choice for me.
Right on.
So my dad talked to me a little bit about different things, potentially military. And then they took me on a road trip across the U.S.
No way.
And we visited every Federal Service Academy out there. Also, all 5 of them. Yeah.
No kidding.
Naval Academy, West Point Air Force Academy, Coast Guard Academy,
Wow.
Kings Point. Yeah. So I had a goal. Of course, my dad being a pilot, I grew up always wanted to be a pilot.
Sure.
And I thought, man, and then there was Top Gun. That happened while I was in high school, too.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought, man, I'm going to join the Navy because I want to go to the Naval Academy.
Okay.
Obviously, graduating in the bottom 10% of your high school class doesn't really put you at the top of the list for admissions.
Hard sell there. It's kind of a hard sell.
Yeah. So right after I graduated high school, man, I enlisted in the Navy.
Right on.
Yes. Funny story. I don't know if I ever told you this one, though, but I was with a friend of mine from high school. We went in on the buddy program.
Oh,
in
no
Dallas.
way.
Yeah, yeah. So we went in the buddy program, and we both tested well on the ASVAB.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going to go in the nuclear program,
Ooh.
the buddy program. Yeah,
Yep.
Sounded sexy.
Yeah.
On swear-in day, I showed up, and he didn't. So I ended up going in by myself. Yeah, yeah. And fortunately / the whole nuclear thing got taken off the table.
Because of him?
Yeah, because of him. But the good news is they offered me an aviation track. And obviously I'm thinking pilot.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything with planes, man, I'm in.
Yeah.
So I went into the avionics.
Nice.
Yeah, I got attached to a patrol squadron, VP-47s, P-3 Orions.
Oh, I love those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good duty. So
Yeah.
yeah, 4 years in the Navy, I never stepped foot on a ship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I could see that. It's funny, too, because I tell, I'm sure some of the audience members may have heard this story when I tell the story about my enlistment, because I had something kind of similar to yours. Like, I knew college wasn't for me. My parents wanted me to go to college because none of them had gone to college.
Right.
And I have a younger sister, and I'm thinking she's got a way better chance of doing good in college than I do. Nah. And I was a good athlete. And so, the idea was, well, I'll go to college and I'll try to get a sports scholarship that'll help alleviate some of the costs.
Yep.
I went to the first college campus and walked around, and I was like, nope, this isn't going to work. Not at all. Not even close. And so my parents were really disappointed because I kind of told them right then and there, like, college isn't for me. I don't know what I'm going to do, but college isn't for me. And I had secretly, basically back then they had the delayed entry program.
Yep.
So I had basically enlisted without my parents.
Right.
Because I was underage. So I did enlist. And when I enlisted, I finally told my parents like 2 weeks before I was going to boot camp.
Surprise!
At the dining room table. Yeah. So I had kind of like a similar kind of, like, nope, college, not going there.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? No, I don't know. But, I kind of like kept it close to the chest for a while because I remember the recruiter was being kind of difficult. I wanted my cake and I wanted to eat it too. Like
Yep.
I wanted both tracks that I wanted to go on. And he's like, that's not possible. You can't do that. I'm like, well, it says here it is possible. I want to do it.
Yeah.
And I look back at the time, like that time period for myself, I was like, just relentless.
Yep.
I mean, absolutely relentless. No, I want it. Give it to me. I'm not going to do anything unless you do this. And I was like 16 and a half or something like that, 17. So I just think back to that time period where I was like so persistent.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, damn, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you are an avionics tech.
Yeah.
And I also love the P3s. The good, that's Cold War right there at its best.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have appreciation for that. But I love those things. They were always fun to have around.
It was.
So did you get a lot of airtime in them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I think it was a 12-man crew.
Oh shit.
Right. Yeah. So you got 2 pilots and a flight engineer, and then you got a tactical guy, a navigator. You got your in-flight technician. I think there's an ordnance guy on the airplane.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I actually even got stick time.
No way.
Yeah. That was good.
That is the fun stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you get a chance to do fun things like that.
Oh man.
Yeah, like I never bothered to keep a record. Like they say, like anytime you get any quality airtime like that, you should document it, log it in, because it's, if you do pursue a pilot's license, these are all hours that you can claim.
Yeah.
I never did any of that.
Yeah.
And I got a fair amount myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's one other thing that I didn't follow, the advice that I was given that I didn't follow. Just one more.
Imagine that.
There's a trend here.
Yes. Very consistent one.
All right, so you are representing the Navy. You're out there, Cold War, anti-sub platform. What happened then?
So, the whole goal was to go to the Naval Academy.
Right.
So I put all my paperwork together. I get my congressional nomination.
Nice.
I get my commanding officer's recommendation, all that sort of stuff, and I apply.
Good for you.
And surprise, I don't get in the first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Little step back.
I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when the admissions officer got my application. They probably were just like,
is this a mistake?
yeah. Am I being punked? So the good news is they did assign me an admissions officer, and he was a chief or master chief. I can't remember which.
Okay.
And he was great. He was like, look, Mike, you got some work to do if you even want to be on the radar here.
Wow.
So he gave me suggestions, take college classes, do all these sort of things. And everything he told me to do, I did.
Good for you.
And I would call this master chief literally at least once a month. No matter where I was in the world, no matter what we were doing, I would call him once a month at least and say, hey, master chief, these are the classes I'm taking. I took this test, got this grade, whatever. So I applied the second year. Didn't get in. Applied the third year. Didn't get in. And then I was about to age out, right? 22. That's it. They won't take you. And
Is there like a sympathy card too that they'll give? Can you play the sympathy card in any way? Like fourth year, come on, I'm almost aged out. Come on.
So kind of that's what happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Apparently what I learned is, and I don't know if this is geographic or what, but I guess there's a group of people who get together from all the different service academies. And these guys were obviously all in Texas and Dallas. And this master chief or whoever was the liaison for the Naval Academy said, hey, man, we got this kid. He's enlisted. He's got a great service record. Going back to your thing, is relentless.
Yeah.
He's called me every month for the past 4 years in a row. Right. Does anybody have a place for him? And one of the guys from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, Kings Point, said, well, look, I could put him on our waiting list. If somebody turns down their nomination, then maybe he can get in. I was deployed in Japan at the time. I get called up to the CO's office. CO says, congratulations, Petty Officer McKim. Pack your bags. You're heading to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. I was like, really?
Out of the blue.
Yeah.
Not what I was expecting.
So that was it, man. I got discharged, and 2 weeks later, I was in New York getting my head shaved and doing push-ups and being yelled at all over again.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So how was that experience?
Actually, it was a good one. I enjoyed... as much as you can enjoy going through boot camp all over again, right?
Yeah.
Although I have to admit that the college boot, it was all run by seniors, right? Though, so the campus is run by the upperclassmen. They're all the midshipman officers. So it was a lot easier than regular boot camp was for sure. But it was great, man. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I struggled academically.
Ooh.
Massively.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I get there, and remember, I had to go to summer school to graduate high school, right?
Oh yeah.
So I'm in calculus 1, physics 1, English. I mean all these classes, and I'm in way over my head.
Oh wow.
So I'm struggling there. There's one other kid in my class, in the plebe class, who is from Queens, and he's 21. Right? So I'm 22, he's 21. It was so funny. All the other kids in my company, they used to call me Gramps because I was 22, right? And they're all 18.
I remember that.
Yeah. But anyway, this guy, Andrew, he's from Queens. And so we got this brilliant idea that, hey, man, we're not allowed off campus at all as a plebe unless you're going jogging. So We would put on our civilian clothes, put our sweats over top of our civilian clothes, jog out of the gate,
Yeah.
and then we get around the corner and we ditch our sweats in the bushes, and his buddy would pull up in a car and take us down to Bell Boulevard, and we would go party.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I got busted being drunk a few times, got in some trouble. Anyways,
We don't need to talk about that.
Yeah. Needless to say, I pissed away that opportunity. And so after first year at Kings Point, I was out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So to this day, obviously, I'm super happy where I'm in life right now.
Of course,
And
yeah.
all the things that have happened, but I still consider it 100% my biggest failure.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know, and those are some of the things that we want to talk about is like, well, you know, what sort of challenges or failures did you face that you feel impacted you so strongly that it changed your course of direction and put you where you are today?
Yeah.
Like, I can totally sympathize with the academic side. Like, when I went through Buds, you know, there's not a lot of academics at Buds, but there are some, and the ones that you have are not easy. Dive physics is like, and I can remember staring down both barrels. You know, failed one dive physics test, and you know, I'm like on the cusp right there.
Yeah.
And you know, great. For whatever reason, I managed to sneak by that physics test, and gosh, man, I tell you what, academically, that was the greatest struggle that I had. Like, not to say that the physical side wasn't hard. Of course it was.
Right.
It was very hard. But the stress that I endured the most was academics.
Yeah.
Like, that shit would freak me out. I'd be like sweating bullets when I knew that we had the you know, the next dive physics test or the dive practical or whatever the case might be. So I can totally sympathize with that. I mean, I was probably a below average school student.
Yeah.
You know, I just, you know, school at that time in my life was not a good thing. It wasn't until the latter part of my Navy career that I actually went back to college, and then I developed an interest in it, and I enjoyed it, and I really did like going back to school. Like, I looked forward to it at that point. Yeah, it was different. You know, I learned a lot about myself, about how I learned, because that was another thing. Like, traditional learning at that point did not suit me.
Yep.
So that was one of the problems, and I did not know how to learn. That was another problem. Like you were saying, the studying, like trying to help myself study. So that was tough. But so I can totally sympathize with the academic side. But I also, like you, feel like that was a massive, I don't know, like I wouldn't say like a warning shot, but it definitely was a wake-up call.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, I need to refocus and figure out. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up hanging around a lot of the smarter guys in my class. Like, we had a guy, great guy. He was like a microbiologist. Okay. And so I would like lean over and like, hey, how do you know, like, and he would be super cool and he'd help me out. So like, at that point, like, whatever ego or pride I had about not admitting that I was dumb, went right out the window. Tried to like open up my opportunities to try to learn from everybody I could.
So wait a minute. You set aside your ego and pride and huh?
It was temporary. Okay, temporary. You can do that. You know, it's just like holding your breath. You know, you hold your breath. You can let go of your pride. Same thing.
Got it. Awesome.
All right, so you drop out of the Merchant Academy, and now what?
So now, Rochelle, who you've met, she had graduated. She went to court reporting school. And so we were high school sweethearts, Rochelle
No
and I.
way.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. She graduated from court reporting school and then moved up to Philly and took a job in Philly so that we could be closer together. Oh. And there was opportunity up there.
Okay.
And this was another part.
So you went back to Philly after the Merchant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She actually came up while I was in the academy.
Okay.
And so one of the things, this is another reason I got in trouble Friday after class. You're not supposed to have, as a freshman or plebe, you're not supposed to have a vehicle. I went ahead and brought my car up, and I found somebody who I would just walk their dog for them on a daily basis, and they let me park my car in their driveway.
No way.
Yeah. And so on Friday, I would just get all my shit together, and I would jump in my car, and I would drive from New York to Philly.
Wow.
And I'd spend the weekend with Rochelle, and my roommate would cover for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hey, where's McKim? I think he's at the gym.
Jogging.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
He's a jogger.
So anyway, I got busted, leaving campus a few times. That was another one. But anyway, when I left, I moved in with Rochelle, which she probably wasn't real happy with at the time. But
Okay.
we have a whole lot of options. And I was like, well, shit, I got to get a job. I don't know what I'm going to do. And this is my aha moment where, you just talked about the moment that you had. I got a job delivering pizzas.
Okay.
If you want to question your existence and really be humbled, deliver pizzas in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Not a real friendly place.
For sure.
Yeah. and no offense, I love Philly, but definitely very different than where we live now.
Yeah. Jamie's from Philly.
Okay.
Yeah. So Philly and Boston both. So
Yes. Yeah. A little different.
yeah.
But the guy that I was on shift with most of the time, a guy named Kenny, I got to know him, and he was on medication for audio hallucinations.
Say that again?
Audio hallucinations. He would hear things.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was kind of my moment where I was really questioning, what the fuck am I doing right now? Like, I'm here. This guy is like mentally unstable.
Oh, God.
And this is who I'm working with. Like, this is the career path that I've chosen at the moment.
So sort of like a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah. That was like, okay, I have to make some better life decisions at this point. And nothing wrong with delivering pizzas. I mean, like, it paid some bills at the time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that was interesting. And then a good friend of mine is actually my best friend. A guy who was my best man at my wedding that I grew up with in Philly. He was like, hey, have you ever done sales before? And I was like, well, no, but I think I can do this. And he was like, my mom works at AT&T. She could probably get you a job, like telemarketing, just basic entry-level type stuff. I was like, dude, I'll take it. So I got a job doing telemarketing. And, back in those days, it was got a list of people. These were all businesses. And I would call them, be like, hey, this is who I am from AT&T. Who do you use for your long-distance service? Because there was long-distance service back then.
That's way back then.
Way back, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I had success in sales, and that's kind of the path that I ended up on. So I went from inside sales to outside sales. And
Interesting.
yeah. And then a good friend of mine, high school friend from Dallas, we reconnected on one of my trips back to Dallas to visit family, Patrick. And Patrick said, oh, you're doing sales? That's awesome. We could use a salesperson at my dad's company. And I was like, all right, great. Didn't even ask what he sold. It's just like, sure, let's do it. Because at that point, Rochelle and I were like, we're going to want to have kids. And so we're probably going to be close to our family. So we want to move back to Dallas.
Gotcha.
And so we moved back to Dallas. And I took a job selling fiber optic cable with my buddy for his dad's company. That timing was amazing because that was during the whole .com boom.
Oh, so holy cow.
Yeah. All the phone companies were buying fiber optic cable and putting it in the ground. Everybody was buying fiber optic cable.
Holy cow.
There was a glass shortage, right? So prices were super high. And we financially...
Were you working on a commission?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So financially, we were doing really well.
Oh, wow.
Not because we were good salespeople, but just because...
Timing.
Yeah. Product supply and demand.
Love it.
So we decided to take a trip one winter. So Patrick and his wife and then me and Rochelle, we went to Tahoe to go snow skiing.
Love it.
Yeah. I said to Patrick, and Patrick and I have always kind of been entrepreneurial, talked about, starting our own businesses and what we'd do if we were ever rich and, all this sort of stuff. So while we're in Tahoe, I say to Patrick, hey, man, I got an uncle in Reno, super successful, drives a Ferrari, owns his own business. We should go visit him. I haven't seen him in a long time. All right, great. So we take a little trip down to Reno. We visit my Uncle Carl. Carl says to me and Patrick, hey, have you guys ever seen coffee being roasted before? And we were like, no.
Is that like water boiling?
So he takes us into the back, and the company that he owns it's called Agtron. And they make food analyzation equipment and all sorts of stuff. But one of the things, he invented a machine that measures the degree of roasted coffee. So he was just fascinated by coffee.
Huh.
And he takes us in the back, and he's got this little coffee roaster set up. And we roast some coffee with him. And then we were like, this is cool. Can we roast some more coffee? And he's like, yeah, all you have to do is, here's how you work the computer, and here's what you do. And he's like, I got 5 more batches. You guys go ahead and roast them. And so instead of going skiing that day,
No way.
we roasted coffee. And then at the end of the day, we were both like, man, we got to get a coffee roaster. This is fun. We enjoy roasting our own coffee. And so I asked Carl, where do we buy a coffee roaster? And he goes, well, shoot, as a matter of fact, I'm buying a larger one. This one's too small for me, so I'm selling it. He's like, well, what are you selling it for? He said, $10,000. And of course, we're making good money.
Yeah.
That's $5,000 a piece. We're like, done.
Nice.
So we bought his coffee roaster, shipped it to Dallas, put it in Patrick's father's warehouse, and just started roasting coffee for ourselves.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So how big was this roaster? Give me a perspective.
It's a 10-kilo roaster, so you would roast 20-ish pounds of coffee at a time.
So like the size of it, the physical size of the roaster itself, as big as this table?
Yeah. So the cooling tray itself, is probably this big, and it stands probably about 6 feet
Okay.
off the ground.
Just trying to get a perspective for what
Yeah.
$10,000 buys you these days.
I still have it.
No way.
I still have it, man. It's sitting in the corner of the warehouse. Yeah.
Nice.
And the reality is I could probably sell it for 20.
Holy cow.
Yeah, even though it hasn't been used in years.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
You guys bought this just to roast your own coffee beans.
Correct.
So you weren't even entrepreneuring at this point. Just selfish. We want our own coffee.
Want our own coffee.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
That is commitment.
$10,000.
The problem was, we're roasting like about 20 pounds of coffee at a time.
Uh-huh.
The two of us can't consume 20 pounds of coffee right before it goes stale. So we start selling it to friends and family.
Makes sense.
Right?
Okay.
And I always tell people the best analogy that I can come up with is like every craft brewery owner that you've ever met.
Yeah.
They start brewing beer in their basement or garage or
For
whatever.
sure.
And then, they're giving beer to friends and family, and people are like, oh, man, your beer is so good. And it's like one day, like, well, I'm going to start a brewery and sell beer then.
Yeah.
So for us, coffee was that.
Nice.
We were like, well, let's just start a business and let's start selling coffee.
About what time period was this, year-wise?
1998.
Wow.
Yeah.
98.
Yep.
Whoo.
98. Yeah.
Like, was access to that kind of coffee roaster common back then?
No.
No, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
It's like, first of all, they were pricey.
Yep.
Second, they probably weren't easy to come by.
No. Yeah, and none of them were made in the U.S.
Interesting.
During that time that I'm aware of.
Okay.
All of them were made. This one was made in Paris, France.
Wow.
A lot of them were made in Germany.
Wow.
So we started selling, to friends and family and that sort of stuff. And this is my favorite. I just had lunch with Patrick recently. We hadn't seen each other in years. And I reminded him of this, but I remember one day, and this is back in pre-2000.
Yeah.
So dial-up internet.
Oh my God!
Was the only internet you had. Patrick has this idea. He goes, what we need to do, man? We need to figure out a way to sell coffee on the internet.
The what net?
And I was like, Patrick, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Nobody's ever going to buy anything on the internet. And yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can you believe that though? Just taking that into perspective at this moment,
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But I tell the boys that same thing. I'm like, you know what? There was a time when cell phones didn't exist.
Yep.
I remember when we got our first microwave at our house. That's how bad it was. It's
so
like
crazy.
It's like we are living in such a technologically dominant time period.
Oh yeah.
It's good and it's bad.
Sure.
So luckily Patrick smacked you. Tell me he smacked you. Did he beat you amongst the head?
No, he caved.
He did?
He was like, yeah, it probably is dumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, please continue.
So, we're roasting coffee and selling. It's a side hustle and a kind of a hobby, for lack of a better term.
For sure. Okay.
And then we use it as, a way to write off going out to dinner with our wives. Right?
Smart.
That was our business.
Yeah.
Then, I guess it was around 2001, the whole .com bubble imploded.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, is a big deal, especially in our industry.
Oh, really?
You know, we're selling fiber optic cable.
Nobody wants to buy them anymore.
Nobody wants to buy it. Yeah, everybody's putting a hold on it. So Patrick's parents got divorced, so that company folded. I took a job with one of the manufacturers that made the cable that we sold. They moved me to Houston.
Okay.
And, you know, the economy just kept going south, and so I ended up getting laid off.
Ugh.
Yes, and Rochelle was 8 months pregnant at the time.
Oh.
Yeah. I was a little bitter about that.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
And I said to Patrick, you know what? Fuck the telecom industry. I'm just going to keep going. I want to sell coffee. And Patrick said, well, you know what? I want to keep food on my family's table, so I'm getting another job in the telecom industry.
Makes sense.
Yes. And so we went separate directions, you know, and he stayed in telecom and has been extremely successful to this day. And I went on with coffee. So I had the coffee roaster set up in our garage in Houston, and that was it, right? I was going to light the world on fire. I was going to introduce Texas to specialty coffee because it was really non-existent when we started.
Man,
coffee wasn't a
20
thing.
plus years ago.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
24.
Holy shit.
Isn't that crazy? So I go out and I pound the pavement and I, you know, go into restaurants and coffee shops, and everybody's like, well, yeah, man, your coffee tastes better than what I'm buying now, but it's 25 cents a pound more than what I'm buying. So, and I thought, oh, this is crazy. Super unsuccessful selling coffee. About 10 months in, I mean, I had really sold.
When you say selling coffee, you mean what were you selling specifically?
Roasted,
like
bagged.
Okay.
So I would roast the coffee, put it in bags.
Got
and
it.
Try and sell it. About 10 months in, had little to no income. And Rochelle says to me one night, she says, hey, when I put Connor to bed, we need to have a talk. I go, okay, cool. So she sits down at the kitchen table and she looks me right in the eye and she says, we have enough money to pay bills one more month and then we're broke.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And we had a mortgage, a new baby, you know, all this sort of stuff. I go, oh, man, this kind of sucks. So, well, motivated to go out and sell coffee.
For sure.
The next day, I go to a coffee shop called Diedrich Coffee in Houston.
Okay.
I walk up to the kid behind the bar, and I say, hey, man, who do you buy coffee from? And the kid looks at me and goes,
Folgers?
We're a franchise, dude.
Oh.
Diedrich. So Diedrich gives us our coffee. Yeah. I was like, shit. So I'm walking out with my tail between my legs, and he hands me a piece of paper. He goes, hey, this is my home number. Can you call me tonight? I got a question for you. I go, yeah, sure. I call the guy. He says, I couldn't talk while I was at work. I signed a lease in downtown Houston. I'm building out a coffee shop right now. And I thought, sweet, first wholesale customer. He says, and I want the same espresso machine that they have. Can you get it for me, that Diedrich had? And I said, yeah, of course I can get that espresso machine for you. And then I hang up the phone. I'm like, holy shit, how am I going to get this espresso machine for this guy? Yeah.
Okay.
So I go back to Uncle Carl, who introduced me to coffee. And I say, hey, Carl, you know, I got to get this espresso machine. Can you help me do it? Oh, yeah. I know Joe at La Marzocco. No sweat. I'll introduce you guys. So he introduces us. I called Joe, and Joe goes, yeah, you know, I've known Carl for a long time. So, yes, I'll sell you an espresso machine. But do me a favor. Don't call me anymore. We're hiring a regional manager. She'll be based in Atlanta, and that's who you'll talk to from now on. Because he was the president of the company and didn't have time for me, understandably. And so I say to Joe, have you hired her yet? And he says, no, why? I said, I'll take the job. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I haven't a paycheck in 10 months, dude. I don't care what it pays. I'll take the job. And he was like, oh, okay, Mike, thanks for calling. Your espresso machine will be on the way. Click.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is kind of back to the Naval Academy thing. I start calling Joe every morning at 8 a.m. Seattle time, every morning for 2 weeks. Hey, Joe, this is Mike. I'm ready to start that job whenever you want. Anyway, after that 2-week period, they decided to bring me up, interview me.
No way.
I got hired.
No way.
Yeah, in 2001, I went to work for them, and from 01 to 06, I worked for them selling espresso machines. The funny part was, and these are the things that are crazy, like thin threads, right?
Yeah.
My 1-year review, Joe says to me, hey, do you remember that day you called to buy an espresso machine? And I was like, yeah, of course I remember that day. He goes, I was literally at my desk typing up the offer letter to the girl we were going to hire. And because of what you said, I decided to hold off on sending her that letter to see how long it would take for her to follow up after her interview. She never followed up after her interview.
Get the fuck out of
It's
here.
the only reason I got the job. That and,
The fact that you called every single day.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that, so 2001 to 2006, I call that my coffee MBA. Right. So the guys that I worked for, I mean, they were pioneers. Kent Bakke, who was the CEO of the company, I mean, he literally started the first espresso cart in Houston, like back in the 70s, I think it was, something like that. Yeah. And Joe was he was an espresso pioneer, and they're the ones that brought La Marzocco, which is one of the most famous espresso machines. Starbucks used them exclusively for a long, long time. I went there thinking I knew everything about coffee and got there and realized I didn't know shit about coffee.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So that 5 years that's what really shaped the direction of Cuvee and myself in the coffee world and all that sort of stuff.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
Protecting loved ones and neighbors is a high calling. Over the last few years, men and women of all walks of life have chosen to exercise their Second Amendment right as first-time gun owners. Through education and training, families and communities are empowered to protect themselves and those around them. Daniel Defense advocates for individuals' rights to bear arms, which is why they manufacture 100% American-made, high-quality firearms backed with a lifetime warranty. To learn more, visit DanielDefense.com. There was like two things that really struck me just now. Well, not during your whole story. One is that theme about persistence. You know, I mean, so many people take a failure as just an utter destruction of their psyche, soul, everything, and they don't bounce back.
Yep.
Or they just, I don't want to use the term quit, but I guess they basically quit.
Yeah, they don't progress.
They don't progress.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's been so many times when reason and logic would have told me that you should just quit and do something else. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm either too stupid to quit, or I'm just that tenacious that I want this. I must have this, and I will do whatever I can to get it.
Yeah.
And when I look back at my career, you know, it was a combination of both.
Yep.
Being stupid and tenacious.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm thankful because so many of those opportunities would have just bounced off me like, you know, like the atmosphere. They just would have bounced right off and nothing. But because I was, you know, determined to some extent, you know, things happened.
Yep.
And you know, like so many people are quick to label failure as a negative.
Right.
And it certainly can be negative.
Sure.
But I think one of the things that we overlook is the importance behind what the failure teaches us.
Right.
And, you know, both in my tactical and strategic look, like, you know, like what should I do differently not to make that mistake, and how should I change my direction to kind of overcome that? So that's really cool to hear. Two things. Number one, you were persistent, and number two, that girl never called back.
Yeah. So crazy.
Who doesn't call back?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what the fuck?
Well, there's that. And then, you know, going back to the Kings Point thing, somebody turned down their appointment. That's the only reason I got in.
Oh my God, that's right.
I just happened to be number one on the list, on the
Jesus.
standby list.
The second thing that I really liked about that last little bit was how, you know, you walk into that espresso experience thinking, oh, I got this. And then you just have your world rocked by how much you don't know.
Yep.
And the good news is that you took that as an opportunity. This is my salvation.
Yep.
I have the opportunity to learn. And like you said, learn from the pioneers in the industry that really kind of put that industry on the map. I mean, you know, that's another hugely valuable piece of, like, people take that for granted a lot of times, you know, like they either feel like they don't need to learn, or they feel like there's nothing to learn.
Yep.
And, one of the reasons why I'm excited to do this podcast is because that's my goal, is to learn. What can I learn from my guests, their failures, their successes? How did it happen? What did it do? Note to self, Mike's partying probably led to his failure. So, okay, we won't be doing that.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that, there's so much to be learned from that. So you got 5 years under your belt working with these pioneers.
Yep.
What happened next?
So I finally got to the point where, once again, going back to always wanting to own my own business and be entrepreneurial and everything, I was still side hustling roasting while I was selling espresso machines.
Makes sense.
And everybody knew it. I didn't do it under the radar or anything like that. Those two lives were very separate. However, they definitely converged.
Oh, yeah.
And because I was roasting coffee, all my customers, my distributors, were coffee roasters. So I would go in there, and I wasn't really an equipment guy. I was a coffee guy, so I related with them. So I had tremendous success. Like over those 5 years, I sold a lot of espresso machines. I mean, when I took over the territory, nobody was buying. I went and met with every coffee roaster in Texas. They all said the same thing to me. Nobody in Texas will buy a La Marzocco because they're too expensive. It was the most expensive espresso machine in the market.
Is there a reason for that?
They're the best.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. That might piss off some coffee nerds out there, but
that's what we do.
Yeah,
we piss people off.
And it just proved them wrong, right? Just because that didn't make sense to me. Why?
So let me ask you this. So what was the alternative for an espresso machine at that time?
Oh,
if you didn't go with that one.
There was cheaper ones on the market. Yeah.
And was there a difference in the product it produced?
Yes. Yeah. For sure.
Yep. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So yeah, I mean, I was super successful selling espresso machines. Once again, timing. I was there when coffee people started to gain interest. Coffee was on the West Coast basically.
Interesting.
It was in Washington State, and Oregon, and Northern California.
Yeah.
But it hadn't really infiltrated the rest of the country so much.
Yeah.
So I got to ride that wave.
Yeah.
And kind of even push that wave and try and advance it. And every year I would say to Rochelle, I was like, man, I just want to quit and I like my job. I didn't hate it by any stretch, but I just want to quit my job and do coffee roasting full time. That was my real passion, was roasting coffee.
Yeah.
And then in 2005, she would just kind of shrug me off, like, whatever, look, keep the paychecks coming in.
Yeah.
In 2005.
Listen, Psycho, let's tone it down a little bit.
Right. She had taken over all the financials of the business, which was great because I sucked at that anyway. Great coffee roaster, terrible financial guy. I've been diagnosed as fiscally irresponsible, by the way. That's a clinical diagnosis. So 2005, I go through my little tantrum about, I want to quit my job and blah, blah, blah. And Rochelle, she's got the books in front of her and she goes, you know what? I think you should quit. And I was like, huh?
Really?
She called my bluff.
Oh, fuck.
So anyway, so I quit December 31st, 2005. I declared myself unemployable and went full-time into Cuvee.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you did that, and you now have those 5 years under your belt, you came out of the gates full gate, like full speed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Moved the coffee roaster out of the garage and into a warehouse and, actually turned it into an actual business that people could come and see and touch and feel. Before that, I was roasting coffee in the garage and I had an espresso machine in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I was bringing strange people into our kitchen to make espresso for them, potential customers. And Rochelle was like,
I don't think that's safe anymore.
This isn't going to work. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about safety.
Yeah, of course not. Jeez, silly. That's silly, Jeff. What are you talking about? So when you hit the ground running, full speed, did you have the success that you thought you would have?
Man, that's a good question. Yes, actually, I probably did have the success that I thought I would.
Uh-huh.
However, I'm one of those enough is never enough type people. And
Right
so
on,
no matter
yeah.
what the success was,
Wasn't
I always
enough.
wanted more. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're killing it, and you're still not happy.
I wasn't unhappy. I just wanted, I think what I've learned over the years is coffee roasting started as my passion. And I still love coffee.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still love it. But growing my business, seeing growth, like actual growth and finding ways to grow and all, that's what really excites me now. That's my passion.
Interesting. So now you've kind of shifted away from the production of the coffee more to the, I guess, the business side of coffee.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. So what are some of the lessons learned that you have discovered along the way?
One of the biggest ones, and along the way, I had a lot of people who helped me, mentored me, took time to answer questions, that sort of thing. And as Cuvee has grown and turned into a brand, which I didn't even know there was such thing as a brand when I started this.
Right.
What I find is young entrepreneurs, particularly in like the food and beverage space, and then of course coffee space, they kind of want to come to me and say, hey, can I ask you some questions about your business? And I kind of feel obligated because so many people have done that for me in the past.
Right. So
I almost always make time to sit down with somebody, have a cup of coffee, and just chat with them, answer questions or whatever. So one of the things that I found in the coffee industry, and I think this probably can transcend to any industry, is sometimes there is the desire to be famous in your industry, no matter what your industry is.
Oh, yeah.
And the smaller your industry is, like the easier it is to be famous, quote unquote.
Oh, yeah.
So I coined a term called coffee famous. And that was my goal. Like when I was selling espresso machines and when I first started selling coffee, I mean, yeah, I wanted to sell coffee and everything. I wanted people to know who I was.
Yeah.
I wanted to be coffee famous. I wanted respect. I mean, that's really what I wanted.
Interesting.
And so I made a lot of decisions that were based on how my peers would view me, right? How other people in the industry would view me. And so one of the things that I always tell young entrepreneurs, and especially if they're in the coffee business, is whatever you do, don't seek the approval of your peers, because your peers are your competitors.
Okay.
They don't buy coffee from you.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about you. They could care less if you go out of business or not. And as a matter of fact, they probably want you to go out of business so they don't have to compete with you. So make your decisions based on what's best for you, your business, your customers, that sort of stuff. Not what you think other people in your industry are going to say about you.
Well, first of all, that's hugely insightful. No, in a sense, because you're right. I see it in my industry as well. And there's two things that I wanted to say. One is I think it's great that you take the time to give back.
Sure.
Like I feel I am where I'm at because I had mentors along my way that guided me, helped me, and got me where I'm at right now.
Yep.
And I always tell people that I am where I'm at because I stand on the shoulders of great men. So I want to, when I can, give that back.
Absolutely.
So kudos to you for doing that. I think that's hugely valuable. And at the same time, it helps to shape the future generations.
Yeah.
And it helps to also ensure prosperity for the field. I don't think we're ever going to have to worry about coffee becoming unpopular, but in my industry, guns we're constantly at war in a sense, trying to keep guns where they are. So
I hadn't heard that, really.
Yeah, I know, it's such a weird novelty. So, you in a sense have the ability to shape the future by shaping the younger generation of entrepreneurs that are coming up. So I think that's hugely valuable.
Yeah.
The second is, you said it has to be in your best, and it has to help you. And I am always leery about giving advice to people because it's my advice.
Right.
and I don't know everything about your circumstances. And sometimes I feel like I will give bad advice. Well, it's good advice, but in your circumstances, it's bad advice.
Right.
So I always try to, and sometimes folks get a little fed up with it or they don't see the value of it, but I always return questions to try to learn a little bit more. It's like, well, why do you want to do that?
Yep.
What's the reason for this? How do you expect that to be handled? And the reason I'm doing that is, number one, to see, to understand their situation a little bit more, but also have they even put the time in to ask those questions of themselves.
Right.
And so, if you're doing this for somebody else's approval, if you're doing anything for somebody else's approval, you're going to be let down a lot more than you can imagine.
Yep.
And it took me a while to figure that out too, because I always sought the approval of particularly in my Navy days, I was always seeking the approval of my superiors.
Yep.
I wanted to, be on the top. I always wanted to do that. So that kind of created maybe some training scars that took me a while to kind of get past. Maybe.
Right.
But, at the same time, it also encouraged me to always be doing more, working harder. So when I see folks in today's world, I'm always trying to make sure that they're in it for the right reasons, and that they're doing this for the right reasons. And if you're worried about, like, again, how many likes did this post get? How many followers do I have? I know that's important from a business. I understand that. I recognize that social media is an integral part of businesses these days. But if that's the reason why you're trying to do these things, you're missing out on such a huge part of the business aspect of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And you get lost in that too. It's such a rabbit hole that you can go down.
Oh, man.
Rabbit hole. One thing that you have not done so far is that you have not given the story behind how you came up with the name of your company. Because it's a very interesting name.
Yeah. When there's a couple facets to the story. When Patrick and I started the coffee roasting company, we called it Capital Coffee.
Okay.
And I don't remember. Next time I have lunch with Patrick, I'm going to ask him if he remembers.
Okay.
I don't remember why we called it Capital Coffee, but we had some, less than brilliant marketing scheme, I'm sure. But we only did one thing. We roasted a coffee blended specifically for espresso, right? I was really into espresso. Both of us were really into espresso. And we called it Espresso Cuvee. And the reason we called it Espresso Cuvee is my Uncle Carl, being the food scientist that he is and all that sort of stuff, super into wine. Has like a wine cellar, 3,000 bottles of wine in it. Like that into wine.
Wow.
And so he was teaching us about wine as we were learning coffee roasting from him, so we got really into it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So cuvee is a term. I mean, it's used for a couple different things, but the meaning that we took, it's used in champagne making.
Okay.
So champagne houses, there will be one spot in their vineyard where the grapes are superior, right? So the microclimate's different, the soil's different, whatever it is. Those grapes, they'll take them and they'll use the juice only from the first press, and that's what they'll make their cuvee out of. So if you ever see a bottle of champagne and it's labeled as cuvee from a champagne house, that's their premium offering. That's their top champagne offering that they have.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the best of the best.
I like that.
So when Patrick and I, when we went separate directions with the business, I went ahead and changed the name of it because I still don't even remember. I probably didn't remember back then why we called it Capital Coffee, and I changed the name of the company to Cuvee Coffee.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, but you had a reason for changing it to Cuvee.
Yes.
Because that's what you wanted. You wanted to, in a sense, express that your coffee was the best of the best.
The best of the best.
I like that.
Yep.
That was pretty cool.
Yes.
Now, you have been extremely successful with that brand. I know that because when I go to HEB, I see it in HEB.
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. I mean, cracking the code of a large chain grocery store like an HEB is big.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
The business was built. I really focused on selling to independent coffee houses.
Yeah.
So there was what's referred to as the third wave movement in coffee. So first wave is Folgers, right? Institutional coffee. Second wave is Starbucks. which is the coffee shop being
being
a second place or
Yeah.
third place or whatever it was they called it. And the third wave is the specialty where, people are focused on where does the coffee come from and what country, what the farmers like, what are they practicing, environmental stewardship and,
Okay,
that
gotcha.
sort of stuff. So it was a little more holistic. So the third wave was the answer to Starbucks, right? So Starbucks was really the only game in town for coffee shops.
Yep.
And so all these independents came out and said, we can do it better.
Nice.
So it's riding the third wave coffee wave.
Nice.
Yeah.
Riding the third wave coffee wave.
Yeah.
Like that.
So that's how the business was built. And along the way, I ran into this little company called Whole Foods. And Whole Foods had this idea and this movement to get more local products in their store.
Yep.
Coffee was one of the categories that they had a buyer for. And so the first Whole Foods that we ever went into, the first grocery store we ever went into was Whole Foods, and it was on Lamar here in Austin, Texas. Yeah. And is amazing. Like, it was such good business. They were so awesome to work with. And I think just because, and we still have a tremendous amount of success in Whole Foods.
Nice.
In this region. I think other grocery chains looked at Whole Foods back then. I don't know if they still do, but back then for sure they looked at Whole Foods as an industry leader.
Yeah.
And so they would want to kind of replicate some of those things.
Absolutely.
And so same thing, just right place, right time. HEB said we want local coffee on the shelf.
No way.
Boom.
Well, that's not that challenging, apparently.
Well, I oversimplified it for sure.
I was going to say, it sounds like there's a little bit more to it than just, we were in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
But, I mean, that whole process, yes, granted, timing and opportunity, but that also came, from a lot of hard work. So the success from Whole Foods theoretically led to more success with other grocery chains such as HEB and whatnot.
Yes.
What was the big lesson learned from working with Whole Foods?
Boy, that's a really good question. I think, just my knee-jerk reaction is probably that the lesson working with Whole Foods or any other grocery chain is you have multiple people you have to please, right? So you got to please the customer, the consumer that's buying there. You got to please the buyer, right? So they'll put you on the shelf. And then you got to please the receiving person who's bringing your coffee in, who's receiving the product and putting it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had a pretty good organizational process that made that easy for you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice. So now that you have kind of brought us to where you're at, you have been a coffee bean seller,
Roaster.
But coffee roaster, thank you. But recently you also started something different. You became part of that third wave, or maybe more like you are doing the second wave better. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're talking about cold brew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So in 2011, I invented a product called Nitro Cold Brew.
Okay.
So in 2011, we were the first people to ever serve Nitro Cold Brew. That happened right here in Austin at the Slow Foods Quiz Bowl. And then in 2014, we were the first people in the world to ever can it.
No way.
Yeah. Which sounds awesome and super sexy.
Yeah.
But what I learned is being first to market.
You make all the mistakes.
Yeah. Well, there's no category. When we started selling Nitro Cold Brew, there's no category for it. So I would go into the grocery stores, especially the ones where we already had coffee on the shelf, and be like, this Nitro Cold Brew. And they were like, I don't know where we're going to put it. We'll put it in with the beer. That'll confuse people.
Yeah, because it does kind of look like a beer.
Yeah. So, it's that age-old adage that pioneers get all the arrows and settlers get all the land. That's exactly,
Damn, that is so spot on.
Yeah.
So spot on.
But that's exactly what happened.
So for the audience members that might not know, what is Nitro cold brew?
Yep. So cold brew, just the definition of cold brew is coffee that's brewed with other than hot water, right? In our instance, we actually cold brew, meaning we chill the processed water down. We have cold liquor tanks, and we chill the water down to 36 degrees.
Oof.
Yeah, before we ever add it to the coffee, and then we keep it there through the whole process. But when we started doing cold brew, we just used room temperature water.
Okay. Interesting. Now, why the cold brew then? What is the value of cold brew?
Well, cold brew, I mean, a lot of people who don't drink hot coffee will actually say, I like cold brew, and the main reason is because it's super low in acid.
Oh.
So if you brew coffee with hot water, you pull a lot of acid out of the coffee, just chemistry.
Yeah.
When you brew it with not hot water or cold water, you don't get all the acidity in it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Huh. But everything else is the same.
Everything else is the same.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this: Why did you decide to start doing that? You're the first one to do it. What? I mean, did you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm just going to run cold water through this filter"?
No. You've known me long enough to know I'm not that smart. So in 2005, I quit my job, La Marzocco, but they actually kept me on contract through 2006 as a consultant. And so I would travel the country and I would support the salespeople
Makes sense.
with some of the stuff that they were doing.
Okay.
One of the sales calls we made, I'm pretty positive it was in Sedona.
Oh, I love Sedona.
Yeah. So I was with one of the sales guys, a guy named Mike, and we're in this coffee shop, and we're having this meeting with the coffee shop owner, and I'm seeing all these like high school age kids come in, and they're pouring a drink off a beer tap, right? And, handing it to all these high school kids, and they're walking out. And finally, like the 20th person, I was like, hey, what the hell are you serving these kids? Because every single one of them bought the exact same thing, and it was off that tap. And I thought it was weird.
Yeah.
Guy got all excited. He goes, let me show you what I'm doing. Takes me in the back. He's brewing hot coffee, and he's dumping it in a 5-gallon home brew keg, adding milk and vanilla syrup.
What?
And then he put it on tap, and he's serving basically a cold vanilla latte out of a beer tap. And I thought, this is genius.
That is brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before. I got back to Texas, and I told all my customers, they're all making their own cold brew with a toddy system. I told them, take your toddy, put it on tap, and serve it on tap, and people will lose their minds. and everybody, and this is in 2006, right?
Wow.
Everybody told me the exact same thing. They're like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I was like, all right, well, I guess it's a dumb idea. But, you hear that the 12th time.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay, it's dumb.
Yeah.
So I just forgot about it. And then I got rekindled at some point. The cold brew that was on the market that was out there, like we didn't invent cold brew. Cold brew had been around for a long time. Right. I didn't really care. Everybody did it the same way. They did it in a system called a toddy, and I didn't really like the flavor of the product. It was gritty and just, I thought, man, this could be better.
Okay.
So I went on this quest to make a better cold brew.
Okay.
And I'm a beer guy, craft beer guy, right?
Okay.
So I'm working in the office one night, and I'm working on the cold brew stuff, and I have a 4-pack of this beer from Left Hand Brewery in Colorado called Left Hand Milk Stout Nitro.
Okay.
And I look at the bottle, and there's instructions, pop the top, and then pour really hard into a glass, and you'll get this nitro cascade. And so I follow the instructions. I pour it into a glass. I go, holy shit, that's what we need to do with coffee.
So what is the nitro cascade? What is that?
So nitrogen is...
okay.
Yeah, just nitrogen.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a way of carbonating.
Okay.
But instead of using CO2, which are really big bubbles, nitrogen are like these really micro bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
And so they create this creamy mouthfeel and texture that you just don't get from CO2.
Huh.
And also you don't get, CO2 has carbonic acid and all that sort of stuff. Nitrogen, you don't get any of that, right? Nitrogen is 80% of what we breathe in the air.
Right.
So I went on this quest to make a beer that would have that nitro cascade effect. That morning, I call Left Hand Brewery in Colorado, and they put me through the head brewer. And I tell the guy, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing. You're the inspiration for this. And the guy goes, all right, hold on a second. Let me put you on hold. He puts me on hold.
We got another crazy on the line.
Yeah. Here's another one of those really crazy, weird, like thin thread things. Our rep, our beer rep from Left Hand in Austin, who used to come into our coffee shop all the time because I had that beer on tap all the time, he was in the office that day.
Get out of here.
And so this head brewer, the guy's name was Roe. Roe says to, oh man, I wish I could remember that guy's name. I don't remember. Anyway, Roe says to our sales rep, hey, there's this dude down in Austin, something coffee, whatever. He goes, oh, Cuvee coffee? They 100% always have our beer on tap, always have Left Hand. And so he gets back on the phone. He's like, okay, what do you want to know?
No shit.
Yeah.
Imagine the odds.
Yeah.
Holy
Crazy.
shit.
So Jordan, the guy's name, sales rep was Jordan. So Jordan, he got me through the gatekeeper, and that kind of started me on a journey. He didn't tell me everything, but he gave me some, very generic, like, here are the steps you go to infuse nitrogen into a product.
Interesting.
And so I started messing with that and perfected it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Go on. There's more there.
And yeah, so in 2011, so we were serving it, right, at all these like food and wine events and all this sort of stuff. In 2011, we go to the Slow Foods Quiz Bowl, and it's just, it's a bunch of chefs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody had ever seen, coffee served on tap before. Nobody had ever seen nitro coffee before. And so I got this little keg and a tap system set up. And all these chefs are coming over, and man, it was like crack to them.
No way.
I mean, this is a nighttime event where everybody should be drinking like cocktails or beer or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
People are pounding nitro cold brew.
No way.
And their minds are blown.
Really?
Yeah. And so that's how that business started. So we started selling kegs.
No way.
Of cold brew, yeah.
Oh my God. That is amazing. So how long ago was that?
That was 2011.
Holy shit.
I know, isn't that crazy?
That's so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Now, what's next then? I mean,
canning it.
Oh.
Yeah, so the end goal for me was, kegs are cool and they're fun and the tap is awesome and all that, but I was like, I want to can this. And this was during during this craft beer movement revolution we were having.
Yes.
Everybody was moving away from bottles and into cans, right? That was the new craft beer thing. And me being a beer guy, I was like, this is what we need to do. We need to can coffee. This is going to be amazing. So we're working on canning coffee. And one of the things I notice is that we saturate the coffee with nitrogen, we put it in the can, but when you pour it out of the can, you'll get a little bit of nitro effect.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Okay.
Guinness has a product inside of their bottles and cans. It's called a widget. Literally called a widget.
Okay.
And so when you open like a Guinness can, you hear the widget activate. When you pour it out, there's this massive, cascade and all that. So I reach out to Guinness. And I asked them if they license the widget. And I literally got a 5-page email back from them telling me about the history of Guinness. And then, last sentence was, no, we don't license the widget.
You're shitting me.
So I was about to just ditch the whole nitro coffee thing in a can. I was like, it's just not the same experience. We'll just serve a still product.
Okay.
Then I read a press release from Oscar Blues in Colorado. Oscar Blues to release Old Chub Nitro in new Ball Corporation widget cans. I was like, this is awesome.
Huh.
So what do you think I did?
Called them up?
I called them up, yeah. And I get
You call them up every morning at 8 a.m.?
I only had to call them once. Yeah. They connect me with their production manager, a guy named Jeremy. And Jeremy's like, this sounds like a super cool project. Why don't you come up and can some beer with us, and we'll teach you everything we know about nitrogen.
Get out of here. Oh, my God.
So I go up there, and I spend 2 days, learning all about nitrogen and canning and about the new widget cans. And then...
So did Guinness have like a patent on this, or?
Yes.
Oh.
So they do have a patent on it.
Okay.
Now, the Guinness widget is a floating widget. It's basically a ball.
Okay.
There's a hole in it.
Okay.
And it floats inside the can, right? and I'll tell you how the widget works.
Okay, good.
Ball Corporation took their widget contraption and they glued it to the bottom of the can. So it wasn't a floating widget. It was basically fixed in the can, which is how they got around the patent.
Interesting.
Yeah. Their R&D lab was in Colorado, not far from Oscar Blues, which is one of the reasons that they teamed up with Oscar Blues to test these widget cans. So I went and met with the Ball Corporation, and they were intrigued by the product and the idea, and so I shipped them a keg. I got a keg ready for them, shipped it cold, cost me a fortune, one keg to ship from Texas to Colorado, right? And then I flew up there and we did a bunch of lab experiments with them. Super successful. So we signed a deal with Ball to get widget cans from them. The problem was the size we needed. The Oscar Blues ones were 16-ounce cans.
Okay.
We didn't want 16 ounces of coffee, right? So cold brew has twice the amount of caffeine as a regular cup of coffee.
Wow.
Yeah, so 16 is kind of like a heart attack in a can, basically. So we wanted the 12-ounce cans. They only manufactured them in Wales. So we had to import the cans from Wales.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and brought them to the U.S. and launched Nitro Cold Brew that way.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Now go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so Guinness, if you're listening, missed out. Could have been on the ground floor.
I think they're doing okay.
I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so you crack this code, and now you provide nitrogen-infused cold brew coffee in a can.
Yep. Yeah, it was super cool. And
that we were going to have here to display, but you decided to.
Some gorilla named Tim.
Yeah.
Took them all. Yeah.
Motherfucker.
But the way the widget works is it's basically a hollow device, like a hollow plastic device that has a hole in it. And one of the last steps that you do with the ball cans particularly is before you put the lid on, you hit it with liquid nitrogen. Then the lid goes on and gets seamed. Since this widget's fixed to the bottom of the can gets inverted, and that liquid nitrogen boils and turns into gas.
Okay.
That gas permeates that widget, so it fills that void with nitrogen gas.
Yeah.
It takes just a couple seconds. So now when you turn the can over and you pop the top, you create this pressure differential.
It rises.
Yeah, the widget releases the nitrogen. So when you pop our can, it goes, you hear that noise, right?
Well, it would be nice to hear it now, Mike.
I know.
Go on.
And it creates turbulence, right? So it's kind of like shaking the can without having to shake the can.
Interesting.
So that way when you pour it, you get a really proper nitro effect.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice. Wow. So, what's next now?
So what happened to me next is I learned that on the roasting side of the business, I was in the coffee industry. Now that I had this liquid in a can, I'm all of a sudden also in the beverage industry, which is a totally different industry. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why is that? Just because it's in a can?
Well, no, it's because it's a beverage.
Well,
I mean, coffee.
Because coffee beans or coffee grinds is different from like beverage in a can, I guess. Is that how it
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So the beverage industry is, it's bottled water and sodas and kombuchas and tea and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I didn't know shit about the beverage industry. So I signed up for this trade show called BevNet.
Okay.
And that's all about the beverage industry.
Okay.
And I went there. Oh, actually, you know what? No. I went there because they called me and said, hey, we're giving you an award for best product innovation. And this was in 2014.
Okay.
14 or 15, one of the two, because of the widget can. We were the first people in the world to do it, and it was, super innovative and blah, 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 blah. So I go to BevNet. Yeah.
I forgot to include that, Jeff, that I was getting an award. That's why I went there. Because I was the only one that ever did it. Don't worry about it. Nice. Keep going.
Yeah. So I get there to get my award, and I meet all these beverage people, and that's when I was just like, oh, shit, now I'm back at square one. I don't know anything about this industry that I'm in. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And they're different buyers, right? So now when I go out and sell, I got a coffee buyer, and then I've got a beverage buyer. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Always two different people.
Oh, interesting. So the beverage buyers or the beverage side of the industry, how has that been?
It's good.
Yeah.
It was really good. It was finally being first to market. Like it comes in handy because it's street cred,
Yes.
right? And so the more people, especially buyers who do their homework, they realize, Cuvee was the first to do this. And so immediately you're close to the top of the list before you ever even go open your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So hopefully the goal is to go in and meet with them and just not fuck up the sale. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And how's that work?
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we started, there was no category for it, but now there is.
Interesting.
Yeah. So nitro
Again,
cold
being
brew.
on the ground floor is always a good deal.
It can be, yes.
I like your analogy, though, by the way. The the pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the land.
Yeah.
Very good. I like that one.
So and that's kind of what happened is bigger companies also created, a nitro cold brew product.
Yeah.
And now there's only so much real estate in a grocery store.
True.
Or on the shelf.
Yeah.
And now, you got to take off your gloves and fight for that shelf space.
Absolutely, man.
And it's 100% a war.
Oh, yeah.
To get that space.
And that, that's one of the other things, too. Like, you were very blasé about your experience with Whole Foods, but that's kind of what I was looking for is like, it is an all-out war because that shelf space is such a premium space.
It is.
And they don't just give that out. I mean, it's like, so what are some of the lessons learned from that war?
It's expensive because they do have almost every grocery chain has what they call slotting fees. And so you have to pay for every SKU that you put on the shelf, multiply that by every store.
Oh.
Yeah, so it may only cost you $100 to put 4 SKUs on a shelf in one store. All of a sudden, if you're going to go in 100 stores, boom.
Yeah.
It's $10,000. So it takes money. A lot of grocery chains, I shouldn't say a lot. Some grocery chains do have programs. So for veteran-owned businesses, they won't charge slotting fees.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Whole Foods, we've never been charged a slotting fee with them. They were the first ones to put nitro cold brew on the shelf for us.
So nice.
Yeah.
Man. Again, ground floor.
Yep.
Pays to be a winner.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So expensive. That's a lesson.
It's expensive. And then the other part is, buyers are finicky, man.
Yeah.
Your product could have great velocity and it could sell, and your consumer base is the base that shops at grocery store X.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll sit down with a buyer, and I'm not going to name this buyer, but I have one buyer that just for years won't expand us through past a certain number of stores. Even though we're one of the top selling coffees, he just won't expand us. And I still haven't been able to, I've been asking and asking. Obviously, I'm asking the wrong question, but I still haven't been able to figure it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that is frustrating.
It is frustrating.
It is frustrating to be at the top and yet not be able to gain more real estate in that sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the other thing is, it's one thing to get on the shelf. It's another thing to stay on the shelf.
so true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like I tell people this all the time, when it comes to like somewhat different analogy, but kind of still the same. When it comes to shooting, there's this idea about shooting fast. I want to be able to shoot fast. And I'm like, that's a great goal. You want to be able to shoot fast. There's also points of diminishing return. Because if you're putting so much energy and effort into trying to shoot fast, that means other areas of your game are being left stagnant.
Yep.
To not do anything.
Yep.
So if you're taking all this time and energy to try and keep your product on the shelf, that means that you're potentially not applying that energy in other venues, other potential.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because you want it, but you to keep that sustainment is both easy and hard.
Yep.
because it's without sustainment, you're not going to be, like all the effort that you put to get there. If you don't put the same amount of effort to stay there, you're just going to find yourself, and especially in such a competitive market like the coffee business, there's always a new coffee program business that's coming up and is hungry and is willing to fight and is willing to go into those trenches and duke it out.
100%.
Even if they don't win, that's still taking up your time and resources to just try to outbid them, outperform them, outmaneuver them, whatever the case might be.
Yep.
So I can't even imagine how competitive the industry is right now. Like, that's a good kind of conversation in a sense. When you started, what did the landscape look like in the coffee world for the small coffee businesses compared to what does it look like now?
Yeah. There was hardly any competition when I started. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, the fruits of the labor for being the first ones.
Yes.
Now, what is it like now?
It's the competition is ridiculous. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not going to say that, we're the top coffee brand out there by any stretch, but we do have really strong brand recognition in Texas.
Yeah.
And the higher you are on the food chain, the more motivated your competitors are to knock you off the top. Yeah.
No matter what industry you're in.
No matter what.
And it's funny because that's good and bad. It forces you to stay on your toes.
Yep.
Always be moving forward. Because if you become flat-footed and stagnant, you're going to get passed up. Mm-hmm. No matter what. I can't even imagine like what type of growth has happened in the last 20 years, like what it looks like from your perspective. But that, like, when you look at the coffee business, and I'm not even as avid a coffee person as you or somebody else. I make a crap ton of it for Jamie because that's all. It's like she's fueled by coffee,
right?
So I don't even have a true understanding of what that. But I've seen the various coffee brands and names and businesses come into the fold, and you're like, oh, there's another one.
Yeah.
I've never heard of them or stuff like that. So, I mean, that's just got to be hellish challenging.
It's challenging. There was a point where it was exciting.
For sure.
Because there was a community, like these third wave coffee shops, other coffee roasters. We would get together and we would be collaborative, and, it was very fraternity-like.
Yes.
Until people start competing against each other.
Yep.
And then, that's where all the backstabbing starts, and it's
it doesn't matter what industry, it's always going to be the same.
Always the same.
Always the same.
Yep.
So what's next for you and the coffee business then?
Boy, that's a good question. I'm working on a couple projects overseas right now.
Interesting.
So in Asia.
Interesting.
Yeah, so specialty coffee is, in the world of tea, specialty coffee is having substantial growth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you say in the world of tea, what do you mean by that?
Oh, in Asia. It's a tea drinking culture for
gotcha,
the most part.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
I was like, are you going to branch out into tea?
I drink my tea iced. That's the only way I drink my tea. Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
And I'm always thinking, obviously, what's next?
Yeah.
What's my next nitro cold brew? I have no idea what that is.
Okay.
We have one retail shop over on East 6. We're getting ready to open another one right off Rainey Street.
So what you're saying is you have a coffee shop.
Yeah.
You have a coffee shop.
We have a coffee shop.
Yes.
Yep. This new one should open up at the end of July.
Nice.
Yeah. So, while retail is licking its wounds, I got the brilliant idea to open another shop.
Well, there could be some advantages. Everybody else is still licking their wounds as well.
Yeah.
So, if you're the first back to the fight, maybe there could be an argument made that, you'll get back in there. And I still think that one of the beautiful things about coffee is it brings people together.
Yes.
It's a conversation piece.
Yeah.
It's a way to introduce. It's a way to connect. So coffee shops are great.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that inside my crystal ball here that it would be successful, But I believe that if it were to be successful, it will probably be successful because it's a good way to connect with people.
Yes.
And, unlike some of the other fields or other businesses or other products, that is kind of lacking.
Yeah.
So a second coffee shop is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The retail's, once again, I'm a glutton for punishment. So, I'm in the coffee industry, the beverage industry, and now in the retail industry too, right?
Wow,
So
that's true. So, okay. So retail, how has that been different?
It's
Brick and mortar is a whole new ball of wax.
Everything's different.
Yeah.
The worker pool is the types of people that come work in coffee shops are different than the ones who roast coffee. And
interesting.
So I've got a team. I call them the brew crew. So we have a cold brew facility, and they run the brewery. They make the cold brew.
Okay.
And then I've got a production team on the roasting side who roasts and packages and ships coffee. And then I've got the coffee shop. We have managers and baristas and all, and they're all 3 completely different tribes.
Yes.
Completely different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of a good observation, And you have to basically hire for that. You have to hire for that. Otherwise, there will be some conflicts.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And sometimes there's crossover.
Oh, sure.
Right. Sometimes I'll have somebody who's a barista who's really passionate about coffee, wants to learn more about coffee, and so they want to come to the roasting side.
Yeah.
But it's this is where you learn that managing people is not easy.
Oh God, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
Like, man, I sympathize for you in that sense because it's not easy to begin with, and in today's world, it's even harder.
Yeah.
Those challenges we could spend hours on.
Yeah.
But what has been, instead of talking about challenges and failures, what's been more of your go-to to try to help bridge the gap and create good connectivity with your employees? What has been your go-to strategy, tactic?
I think what I've learned is, leadership by fear never works.
Oh, hell no. Yeah.
Right. So threatening somebody with their job if they don't do a good job, that's
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
dumb.
Past that. We're so past that period of our history.
I think the thing that I've learned is as long as I can keep somebody engaged, right, and they feel like they're advancing, learning, that sort of stuff. Obviously there's a million touch points for company culture, but as soon as somebody's bored with their job or doesn't feel like they're going to advance any further,
it's so
they
true.
got one foot out the door.
Man, or they're already looking. They're already looking. One of my challenges, and building an instructor corps is both hugely valuable and rewarding for me. I do love to. I can only be in one place at one time.
Yep.
And I really enjoy working at teaching other people to teach other people.
Right.
And one of the things that I've tried to take away from that is, when you are looking for somebody to be a potential employee, or in my case, an instructor, one of the things that has been hugely valuable for me is for that person to be able to relate to the consumer or the customer.
Yep.
And if they can relate to them, they can appreciate the challenges that customer and consumer goes through. And then they can, there's a little bit more buy-in for them.
Yep.
And when I can get my guys to buy into that, then they start to recognize the importance of their own development as an instructor to help improve the product that they're giving. And it's funny because most of these guys that I have are just such an amazing shooters, skilled craft, they're dialed in. But where they really are improving in leaps and bounds is in their connection with those people. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've tried to impart on them is, upward mobility for us is pretty simple. It's just like you're an instructor, senior instructor, you're doing things. I don't oversee much in that sense.
Yep.
But what I try to tell them is that what is happening is that these students are looking to you as the subject matter expert. You're that person. That's your upward mobility, is that you're gaining their trust. You're building a bond with them.
Yeah.
That bond is going to grow so your upward mobility is by touching more people.
Right.
The more people you touch, the higher you climb. And so that's how I try to keep my people engaged because you're right. Like I've had a couple people that, and what really sucks is that it's such the train up aspect to get somebody to just a standard level of proficiency within whatever the field is.
Yeah.
Is time consuming.
It is.
It's costly.
Yep.
And so you want to try not to repeat that process whenever you can. So it's in your best interest to try and not just hire the right person, but to try to keep that person.
Yep.
And so engaging with them and getting them to recognize that value of, what do you bring to the table of sorts and how can you exploit that? That's been a big win for me. So, not that that's how you would do it in your end, but that's kind of like what I've seen, like trying to, again, how do I keep my guys?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to run training for my trainers. I want to have trainers. So I think that's one of those often overlooked scenarios that how can I best keep my guys on staff? It's not, obviously pay is important. The work hours and all those other things are important, but really it's about helping them to recognize how important they are to the success of the overall company mission, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. That's great insight.
What other tidbits do you want to share with us? Do you have anything that we didn't cover that you want to share?
I would say actually two things. Well, maybe who knows how many things. It could be 10 things. I don't know. Let's just start. To build on what you just said. Yeah, I look at my job now as providing opportunity for the people that work for me. The only way that
Absolutely.
I can provide opportunity is if I can grow the business.
So true.
Right. So kind of back to that, growing the business is my passion now.
Yes.
And as long as the business is growing, there can be upward mobility.
Exactly.
For people. If the business is stagnant, everybody's just doing the same job day in, day out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laborious,
yes.
kind of like little, totally get that.
I think, and you already know this, but we'll go back to my Kings Point failure.
Mm-hmm.
So the silver lining in that is my oldest son, Connor,
Mm-hmm.
came home from high school in 11th grade and said, he came from a college fair and said, "Hey, Dad, I think I want to apply to the Merchant Marine Academy." And I was like, huh. They had a table there, at the college fair, and Connor walked past it and was like, "Oh, my dad went here." And, the guy was like, "Oh, that's cool," and started talking to Connor. So anyway, told Connor, "Sure, I can help you do that. I can help you apply." And not only did he apply, he got in. And he actually graduated in 21.
Yeah.
He's now a Marine. And he's, as we speak now, he's at TBS. He graduates in October and goes to flight school after that.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. So following in his father's footsteps.
No, he's blown past me. Yeah.
Well, that's a great role model that you started for him.
Yeah.
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 I think that's probably one of the reasons why he's being so successful there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's cool. And then Cole, who our youngest, he actually is the production manager at the cold brew facility. So he works in the business. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So how about that?
You can't really ask for more than that, man.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that is truly a blessing.
Yeah.
Truly a blessing.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's start wrapping things up. Let's. I like to end the show with kind of like the same question that I ask all the guests, which is, what is the biggest takeaway that you want our listeners to have or to take away?
I think, look, a common theme that the both of us threw out there today is kind of relentless persistence, no matter what it is.
Yes.
And I can't. It's funny, man. My dad, I called him several years ago on his birthday in November, and he said something that was really, is probably the coolest thing he's ever said to me in my life. And he said, your tenacity and your persistence, I have no idea where you get that from. He said, but I want you to know that you've exceeded all of my expectations.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought about it for a minute and thought, okay, that could mean two different things. One, he had really low expectations for me. But knowing my dad and the perfectionist that he is, which is a good quality in a pilot, right?
For sure.
He had high expectations. And
For sure.
So I would say and that's the thing that he led with, was the persistence and tenacity and all that sort of stuff. So I would say don't ever underestimate that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's a huge, like, especially with the younger generation right now, they're looking at a lot of hard times ahead of them. And, I try to beat it into everybody that I come into contact with is, you have to be persistent. You have to be ferocious in that persistence.
Yep.
And I know that a lot of times it doesn't pay off, but that's why you have to be ferocious.
Absolutely.
Is because it will at some point. At some point it will.
Yes. It's talking about, this age of technology and how fast it advances.
Yeah.
That I think that is the biggest challenge a lot of young people face right now, is things happen so fast.
Oh boy, that is no lie.
And so sometimes it's, when you're really going after something, it takes a long time to achieve a goal.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people will get discouraged that it takes so long.
We have had this conversation with a lot of other guests, the instant gratification and the difficulty of understanding hard work.
Yeah.
And what hard work doesn't mean at this moment. Hard work means for this duration.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of people, like so many people, kind of like lose sight of the duration. They're just like, well, if I put the hard work in right now, I'm good. Right. I should be rewarded. Without realizing that it's no. It's like this long duration of hard work where you will see the hard work paying off.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one for a lot of folks to see these days, because we are such an instant gratification. I mean, we have at our fingertips the answers to pretty much everything in an instant.
Yep.
So, actually putting in that hard work can sometimes be a hard sell.
And it's even, I feel like it's just increased exponentially too. I mean, now after COVID and everything, you don't have to go to a restaurant and sit down and order. You can get on your phone and order, drive up to the curb, they'll bring it to you. I mean, talk about instant.
I hate to say it like this, but I really don't like a lot of the things that, what I'm trying to say is I try to take the time to do the things that I used to do.
Yeah.
Even though I don't necessarily have to, I can call an order in and pick it up to go. I do like sitting down at a restaurant. There are times when I do to go, absolutely.
Sure.
But as my default setting for everything, like having food delivered every day to your doorstep, no, God, that's just like
I wouldn't even think about that. Yeah, you hit Uber Eats.
Yes.
And just have the food delivered
every day. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to leave it. You don't have to. Don't even get me started with that.
Oh man.
All right. So where can people learn more about Cuvee Coffee? Learn more about you. Learn more about your adventures.
Yeah. The socials are all Cuvee Coffee, and then mine are all Mike McKim.
Easy day.
Easy. Yep.
Easy day. Well, all right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thank you, Mike, for coming on the show. I really had such a good time. There's a lot of things I did not know, so this was fun. I really enjoyed that. I did not know some of these things. We can talk about that offline. But again, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for everybody who's tuning in. I want to thank our sponsors for supporting us. It wouldn't be possible without them. I want to thank the men and women that are out there holding the line. Folks, if you're interested in listening to previous podcasts, you can visit the website bulletproofworkshop.com to learn more. You can also visit tridentconcepts.com to learn more about me and training opportunities. Until then, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, and you're listening to the Bulletproof Workshop podcast. Stay safe or be dangerous. Adios, folks.